Cameron Terrell was back in court today. The 18-year-old from Rancho Palos Verdes lives in a very exclusive upscale neighborhood, but police say he got involved with a South LA gang.
The victim in this case, Justin Holmes, had just rounded this corner at 78th and Western with two of his friends when detectives say they were confronted by a pair of suspects who asked the men where they were from and then opened fire.
Just before noon on October 1st, 2017, a black Mercedes crept through Manchester Square in South Los Angeles. At the same time, Justin Holmes and two friends were walking down the 7800 block of Southwestern Avenue. No gang signs thrown, no colors, no warning. Then the Benz pulled up. Two teenagers stepped out asking one question.
"Where you from, Cash?"
Holmes, allegedly unaffiliated, told the teens he didn't claim a gang.
Justin Holmes was not a gangbanger.
Monday night, a close friend told us over the phone Justin went to college, studied boxing, was working at a truck rental business, and had goals and dreams.
But regardless, seconds later, gunfire cracked through the block. Bodies scattered, and 21-year-old Justin Holmes dropped where he stood, caught in a moment that turned permanent in seconds. By the time sirens could be heard wailing through the neighborhood, it was already too late. Holmes was pronounced deceased at 12:02 p.m. It was his day off from U-Haul that he had chosen to spend with friends. But in a city used to violence, this one stood out. The focus wasn't just on the shooting, but on who was driving the Benz. His name was Cameron Terrell. And this story is about how a suburban teenager tried to live a life that was never his, and how somebody else paid the price for it. Cameron Terrell wasn't born into struggle. He was an only child who kept good grades and lived a life of resources, comfort, and insulation. He grew up in Palos Verdes estates, a place of quiet streets, ocean views, and multi-million-dollar homes. Everything most kids in South LA never had. His father was media executive Donald Wayne Terrell, and mother, interior designer Deborah Terrell. But somewhere along the way, that life wasn't enough. And while some kids run from the streets, some go looking for them. Terrell was the suburban kid staring over the fence at a life that fascinated him. His lawyer later telling jurors that Terrell bought a book about gangs and went on what he described as an LA gang binge. He started hanging out over 20 miles from his home in Jesse Owens Park, a known hangout for the rollin' 90s Crips. Being out in South LA, his problems at home felt small compared to what he saw there. His presence stood out as people saw a wealthy white kid in a brand new Benz showing up over and over again.
Many occasions he pulled up at my house in his car, in his brand new car. I couldn't figure it out then.
What kind of car did he have?
Brand new Mercedes Benz.
While there, he met a teenager who connected him to the gang, eventually joining the set and becoming known by the nickname Milk. That's where the shift gradually happened. He threw on the colors, wore the symbols like they meant something deeper than cloth and ink, and before long he wasn't just around it, he was a part of it. And once in, he started his path to becoming the center of one of Los Angeles' most volatile criminal cases. Surveillance video showed two teenagers jumping into the back seat of a black Mercedes Benz after the shooting that was driven by Terrell. Investigators said the car was registered to Terrell's father and typically driven by Terrell. Terrell admitted he was behind the wheel, but the question that would later consume the trial was not whether he was there, but what he knew before the shots were fired.
The DA's team had presented strong evidence that two people in the car of the defendant, Cameron Terrell, were packing weapons, and at least one of them had a really big gun that the passengers, or that Cameron Terrell, had to know the intentions of those passengers.
Police arrested Terrell on October 12, 2017, along with two juveniles. The LAPD said gang allegations were filed against all three defendants and identified Terrell as the alleged driver. Then came the detail that turned the case from a typical homicide case to a question about class and race in America. 7 days after his arrest, Terrell got out on a $5 million bond, putting up $500,000 cash.
Also noting that Terrell remains free on a $5 million bond because his family was able to afford it.
For a stretch, he even returned to Palos Verdes High School, causing many parents to question the decision of letting him back into school.
He presents a danger to them, and we would like him to be put on home study.
Parents demanded Cameron's removal from school after learning the teen is accused of murder involving a gang.
A letter to the school board argued that even with the presumption of innocence, his presence created a safety risk and a major disruption in the classroom.
His lawyer says he is now being homeschooled and has been accepted to 9 colleges.
So while Justin Holmes was dead, and while the city argued over gang violence and race and privilege, the murder suspect from the suburbs was still, for a time, moving through his senior year like nothing happened. By the time the trial finally began in July 2018, the room was heavy with expectation. Piece by piece, a timeline had been laid out, stretching from the quiet streets of Palos Verdes to the tension-filled corners of South LA. His attorney painted the picture of a teenager who had drifted far from the life he was born into, unaware of the events that would unfold the day Holmes was shot.
Cameron, he's not as innocent as everybody would say. Some say he's innocent, some say he's not, but the fact of the matter is that you're around here. You're excited by what's going on in your generation. So you're down here hanging with these kids, you're getting in all kind of trouble with these kids. Now when the pressure is on, now you flee back to Palos Verdes, to a safe haven that you know. And you're trying to leave these kids stuck out here with something that you're involved in.
Terrell claimed he thought he was driving the 2 teens to spray graffiti in rivals' territory.
God knows what really happened that day, and God knows what was in my head that day.
The courtroom became a battlefield of 2 realities. On one side, prosecutors leaned on digital evidence, photos, social media, and symbols like the W tattoo on Terrell's chest. To some, it stood for Western Avenue, a corridor associated with the rolling 90s. To others, it was just a letter. But in a case like this, even a single character can carry weight. Because in the streets, symbols aren't just decoration. They tell people who you are, or who you're trying to be. On the other side, the defense focused on intent. His attorney stated the evidence showed his client did not possess a weapon, did not shoot anyone, and was not part of a plan to kill. The jury had to decide, not just what Cameron Terrell did, but what he knew. Then came the verdict. Not guilty. Across the room, Justin Holmes's family broke down, shaking their heads in disbelief. For Holmes's family, and for many watching from outside the courthouse, those words landed like a second wound. On the other side, Cameron Terrell stood still in a navy suit, shoulders tight, as his lawyer's hand rested on his back. And somewhere in between those 2 realities was a silence that didn't feel like closure. Some people saw a system working exactly how it was supposed to, a case where doubt couldn't be erased. Others saw a version of justice that didn't look the same for everyone. Because while Terrell was acquitted, others connected to the case were not.
One thing we always knew, like if something ever happened, I hate to say it, if something ever happened, we knew it was going to be a difference.
And the reality remained. A young man named Justin Holmes was still dead. And even as the debate played out in headlines and conversations, the story kept moving forward. Months later, in March 2019, Cameron Terrell was back in handcuffs, this time tied to separate allegations involving armed carjacking and robbery.
Because this matter was handled in juvenile court, there are few details. Terrell was facing trial this month on armed carjacking and robbery charges that happened when he was 18 years old. Terrell's lawyer says his client was allegedly an accomplice and, quote, the case has been resolved. Terrell is now back at home and will not return to the University of Houston this semester.
Investigators said the trail of evidence had been there all along, buried inside the original investigation. At the same time, Justin Holmes's family took their fight into civil court, filing a wrongful death lawsuit, searching for answers in a system that had already given its final word in criminal court. Because for them, nothing had been resolved. In the end, the simplest fact is still the heaviest one. Justin Holmes never made it back from that Sunday, and a teenager from one of the richest corners of Los Angeles became the face of a question the city seemed to answer. When violence crosses class lines, who gets condemned, who gets believed, and who gets to walk away?